Okay, friends, the story begins. Parshas Vayeitzei. Parshas Vayeitzei teaches us of a very important life transformation, a life transformation that Yaakov had gone through. And what we're going to uncover and unpack in the next couple of minutes is a transformation we can all go through. One of the big things about Yaakov is he dreamed. And we have a lot of dreams throughout the Torah. Pharaoh dreamed. Nebuchadnezzar dreamed, with the story of Daniel. Yosef dreamed. The dreams weren't always clear, and they required interpretation. Yaakov dreamed, and he was somehow comfortable taking his dream for face value. The message was clear. He ran with it. He did something with it. But I want to analyze the text for a moment because I came across this, what I think is a fascinating observation. Yaakov is at this point in the Parsha running away from his brother Esav, who wants to kill him because Yaakov had stolen the bracha. He had stolen the birthright blessing fair and square. He's going to Haran. He's going to live with his brother Lavan. Sorry, his uncle Lavan, his wife's brother Lavan. And it suddenly gets dark, and he makes a pit stop at this place. The Torah says, Vayivka b'makom, he encounters this place. And we know from the sages that this place was the same place that his father was bound and was offered as a sacrifice 150 years prior. This is Jerusalem. This is the region of Benjamin, where the altar was. He encounters this place, he falls asleep, he has a dream. In his dream, angels are going up and down the ladder. God communicates in this dream that even though you're just running away and your life seems to be about survival at this point, you will be blessed, you will spread forth throughout the world, and you're going to be protected. Dream is over. Yaakov wakes up. He's all excited. He goes on his way. He goes to the well. The whole story of him unrolling the stone that was apparently too heavy for one person, but he figured out how to do it. He then meets his future father-in-law, marries his wives, establishes the 12 tribes. Then at the end of the Parsha, 20 years later, and 12 children later, and 4 wives later, it's now time to go back home because maybe Esav finally calmed down. And as he's leaving, and I'll just let's look at the text at the end of the Parsha as well. As he's leaving, it says, Yaakov went on his way. Yaakov halach ladarko. Yaakov goes on his way. Vayifka uvo. And he encounters, that same word as before, he encounters malach Elokim, he encounters angels of God. You see the difference? On his way in to Haran, escaping the land of Israel where his brother Esav wanted to kill him, he dreams of angels, and God reassures him. On his way back to Israel, the Torah says he encounters angels of God. But not in a dream. In real life. The first time he dreamed about angels, 20 years later, 12 children later, 4 wives later, he's no longer dreaming of angels, but they're real. Rashi makes a point to iterate that it were the same angels. The first time there was angels going down and up the ladder was the angels of Israel that escorted him there, and because he's leaving the land of Israel now, different angels are coming. Rashi says those same angels are coming back. So it's literally the same angels, but they're not appearing in a dream, they're appearing in real life. If you look at the beginning of next week's Parsha, where Yaakov is on his journey back to the land of Israel, back to his father's home, and again he sends angels to Esav. He sends like messengers and spies. He wants to figure out what the deal is. He finds out Esav is coming with 400 men. Esav wants to kill him. That whole story. But if you look at the text, it says, Vayishlach Yaakov malachim. Yaakov sent angels. And Rashi says, malachim mamash, literal angels, real angels. So there's like 3 stages in his life. He went from dreaming of angels to experiencing them in person, to being able to tell them what to do, to being able to command them, to being in charge of them. And what I see here is a maturation, a spiritual maturation. Because the Rambam, Maimonides, points out, not in this context, but in a different context, that there's different levels of prophecy. There's different types of prophets. There's prophets and there's prophets. Maimonides has what's called the 13 principles of Jewish faith. 13 fundamental Jewish beliefs. One of which is the belief in prophecy. The belief that God is relevant and communicates his relevance to people. God isn't just stuck in heaven, but he actually talks with us. The belief in prophecy is fundamental. Maimonides, the Rambam, also says that the belief that Moses is the ultimate prophet is also fundamental. So what's the difference between Moses' prophecy and other levels of prophecy? He says a lower level prophet dreams of messages and has to interpret it. A higher level prophet like Moses has a very vivid, clear experience. Commentaries point out that Yaakov had gone through these 3 stages, through this maturation. He started off dreaming of angels, and then he went to experiencing them, and then even furthermore, commanding them. And our question today is, what was this shift in Yaakov's life? Maybe it wasn't just one shift, but what put him on the journey toward making this big shift to take theoretical spirituality, but when I say theoretical, I mean perceptually theoretical. He was just dreaming about it. It was real, but he experienced it only in his head. Something almost like philosophical. It was a dream. Dreams, by definition, are things that are, you would dream of them, right? But somehow it became real. What changed in Yaakov's life that made spirituality, that made a relationship with God, that made a relationship with seeing life from a very different pair of lenses, real? And I think this is a question we all kind of want to figure out. I think this is like the $1 million question. Can I experience truth, not just believe in it, not just dream of it? Can I make a relationship that seems theoretical practical? I'll share with you a story, one of my favorite stories. Rabbi Shalom Doiber of Lubavitch, known as the Rebbe Rashab, was once heading on vacation from the town of Lubavitch to a resort town. His doctor ordered him to go on vacation to heal, to go to some sort of healing resort. He had a lot of health issues. And this is like in the mid-1800s, or maybe late 1800s. He's in this horse and buggy, and he's actually carpooling. From the town of Lubavitch to this resort town, he's carpooling together with what's called the maskil, which was basically a heretic. There's a group of maskilim. They called themselves maskilim, the intellectuals. And they used to try to textually prove that Judaism isn't true. And they made a whole religion out of it. And there was a lot of tension between them and the traditional Jewish world, and they ended up dying out. But they're carpooling together. So you have the Rebbe Rashab, you have the Rebbe, and he's carpooling together with a heretic, which you got to believe is going to lead to interesting conversation. They get into debate. They're debating the validity of prophecy. They're debating the validity of angels. The validity of a spiritual reality that our eyes don't see. And of course, the Rebbe Rashab's position was in line with the fundamental principles of Jewish faith, that there is a deeper reality beyond what meets the eye. And the maskil was arguing that that's not the case, that we have to go by what the observable naked eye could see. And finally, the maskil blurts out, "Do you see angels? Come on." Like, what are we debating here already? I don't see any angels. I don't see any spiritual worlds and deeper reality. I don't see the names of God that creates. I don't see communication with God, with the world and people. You see this stuff? So the Rebbe Rashab told him that there are three characters that are with us right now. There is you and I riding in the horse and buggy to the resort town. There is the horse and wagon driver, the horse and buggy driver. Is he a driver or a rider or whatever it is? Conductor? I don't know. And there's the horse. And were you to interview all three of us individually about the purpose for this trip, you'd get different answers. If you were to ask us, if somebody were to interview us and ask us, what is the purpose of this trip? We would say to go to our resort and heal, rejuvenate, recuperate. If you were to ask the wagon driver, what is the purpose of this journey? I get paid. He might not even know where they're going. He might know the address, obviously. He might not know where they're going and why they're going there. It's not relevant. It's a much more limited perspective. It's a much more narrow perspective on life. And then if you talk to the horse, that's a very narrow perspective on life. Because if you ask the horse, what's the purpose of this journey? It's, I don't want to get whipped. I need some hay. So the Rebbe Rashab told him, effectively, that you need to start looking at life like a human being. Understanding that there is deeper purpose going on, even if you don't see it right now. And not to look at life like a horse, where it's just about hay. It's just about not getting whipped. Because when we look at life that way, you're not going to see anything. You're not going to see the resort. You're not going to see the journey. You're not even going to see the paycheck that the drivers get. You have a very limited, narrow perspective. And the Rebbe Rashab was encouraging him to expand his limits. And in some way, Yaakov, in our Parsha, had really expanded his limits, I think. From dreaming about angels to experiencing them to ultimately commanding them. Which means God became a very vivid, real part of his life. And this is the journey we go through. And I think, this is my humble opinion, that the shift that helped Yaakov scale in his relationship with God. And I think this will help us scale in our relationship with God. And by the way, our relationship with people, because it's the same with the soul. Sometimes we believe people have a soul, like it's some sort of dream. It's like, I'm sure he does have a soul, but I haven't seen it yet type of thing, right? But we could get ourselves to a point where we know people have a soul. Like I've touched it. I've seen it. The shift, I think, goes back to Yaakov's reaction to his original dream. To put things in perspective, let's just look at the text real quick. To put things in perspective, right before that dream, I mean, if we were to psychoanalyze Yaakov's emotional state at this point, he was cornered by his mother to steal brachos, steal blessings, steal a birthright from his brother. He didn't want that birthright. I mean, he wasn't planning on going for it. His mother urged him to do it. And the result is, instead of blessings and a life that is plentiful, the result is he's getting killed by his brother and he has to run away. And he literally has nothing with him other than himself. And he's terrified. We know that he's terrified because before he went to sleep, what did he do? He took the 12 stones and put them around his head to protect himself. Now, why that's going to protect him is a separate question. But he wanted to protect himself. He was afraid. He was afraid of wild animals. He was afraid of the elements. It's not very clear where he's going. At this point, it seems like his life is just about survival. It's literally what life is. Just not getting killed by Esav, not getting killed by wild animals. He goes to sleep. He has the dream with the ladders and the angels going down and up. And God reassures him that he's going to be protected. He then wakes up and he's thankful to God. And what does he do? I'll read the text he Hebrew and I'll translate it into English because I think this is the key. The Torah says then, Vayeitzei Yaakov raglav. Yaakov picked up his legs. Vayelech artza v'nekedem, then he went to the land eastward, ultimately found Rachel by the well, married Leah and Rachel, and built his family. But commentaries pick up on the interesting usage, the interesting language here. Vayeitzei Yaakov raglav. Yaakov picked up his legs. Well, what does that mean? He ran? So just say he ran. What does that mean he picked up his legs? Rashi says that as soon as he heard the good news in the dream, he took it seriously. And because he took it seriously, I'll read it in Hebrew and then translate it because I think this is so significant. Nasa liboy es raglav, his heart carried his legs. That's what Rashi says. Venase kalalechas, it became easy to go. He became very light on his feet, as it were. Very swift. Because his heart carried him. If we can feel emotionally invested, our heart will be carried. If we can feel emotionally bought in, our heart is going to carry us, even if it's difficult. Later in the Parsha, he tells Lavan, I want to marry your daughter. I'll work for you 7 years prior. And the Torah literally says he loved Rachel so much, those 7 years felt like a day. It was hard work. It didn't matter because he wanted it. When we're emotionally bought in, the most difficult of tasks become light. And they carry us. He carried his legs. It just became swift. He had a certain simcha, a certain joy, because he was emotionally invested. He somehow aligned himself to not just think, life is about running away from Esav. He actually took his dream seriously. It changed the way he felt about things. It changed his attitude. He later goes to the well, and at that well, there's 3 other people, and he says, what are you guys doing here? He says, we're waiting for the 4th guy because it takes 4 people to move the stone that's covering the well. We can't do it by ourselves. And that was like their protection. Nobody can come by themselves and steal water. Yaakov sees Rachel coming nearby, his future wife, and he starts flexing. He picks up the stone by himself to get her water. It's like, how did you do that? Because he wasn't focused on how heavy the stone was. He was focused on Rachel. He was focused on getting the water. He was focused on what needed to be done. When he was bought in, what seemed difficult becomes much easier because there's a reason. Like Viktor Frankl says, when you have a why, you figure out the how. I'll conclude with this story. Many years ago, there was a rabbi visiting from Bremrois, France, visiting New York. He was spending the Tishrei holiday season, Sukkot season, with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, among many other Chassidim. And right before the dancing on Simchas Torah, the dancing with the Torahs, there was a small informal Farbrengen. Chassidim gathering around the table, wishing each other l'chaim, getting into the spirit of things. And Reb Zalman Schneerson, this rabbi visiting, had a lot of health issues. He couldn't participate in having alcohol, which made it a very dry Farbrengen for him. But even worse, he was not ambulatory. He was in a wheelchair, and he couldn't walk. He requested from somebody nearby to get him a Tanya. The young student runs and gets him a Tanya. That's weird, like pulling out books out of Farbrengen. He opens up to chapter 33, where it talks about reigniting joy, especially when the soul needs it. He reads the first couple of lines, and he was so inspired that he literally popped out of his wheelchair and started dancing. Like Rashi says, the heart carries the legs. It becomes swift and easy to go when we're fully bought in. Because he takes the dream seriously. Reb Zalman Schneerson took the Tanya seriously. Yaakov took his dream seriously. And eventually what seemed like a dream became a very vivid reality. And I think this is true in our interpersonal relationships, where we want to see the best in people. We want to see the best version of people. We want to see the soul of people. But it doesn't seem like a present reality. It doesn't seem like a dominant reality. It seems like a dream. Like, yeah, I'm sure this guy has a soul, but like when he's sleeping, you know what I'm saying? And that's when we dream. But we can shift. We can shift when we take it seriously. Then what seemed theoretical becomes vivid and real. Okay, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.